A fuel choice that even rivals can agree on? Now that's worth the hype. Cheaper, cleaner, and homegrown. Pump it up with unleaded 88.
It's Cyclone Sunday with Ben Bruns. Breaking everything down from the Channel Seed Studios. This is Iowa Everywhere.
What is going on? It is Cyclone Sunday here in the Channel Seed Studios on Iowa Everywhere. Ben Bruns here. I'm Aiden Wyatt. The Iowa State Cyclones are 7-0. Party like it's 1938, people.
What a horrendous game. And to come out with a victory is like, I mean, it was like having bamboo shoots shoved up underneath your fingernails for, 59 minutes. And then all of a sudden, here we go, very, very reminiscent of Iowa in that way. The start may be a little different, Iowa State up 14-7. And, Clayton, my son, turns over and he's like, hey, if we score right here, this is a big deal. Like this would really kind of change this. And we were, we were looking good at that point. Man, all of a sudden, we miss a throw over the top to Knoll, and next play, here goes 80 yards after a punt, right? Mm-hmm. So, in a 3-play span, you've got a wide open touchdown that you throw an under route for instead of not a lot of no pressure, and then you punt it. And they hit a home run for 80 yards after you miss a tackle and there's no alley support on defense. And now it's 14-14. You're like, this thing could have easily been 21-10 at halftime or even a little bit more. But, I saw Matthias Schwarzkopf tweet, Iowa State's playing with its food, and I thought that was good. That was around halftime. And a lot of times you get burned when you do that, right? I mean, most of the time. That UCF team was as physical up front defensively as anybody we've played in a couple of years, in my opinion. Those nose guys, the two interior guys, Aiden, when somebody's 6'1", like 340, if they're 3-4 inches shorter than you and they weigh more than you and they're good athletes, it makes for a really hard day inside. And, they brought pressure and Rocco was trying to figure out which way was up. And yet somehow, some way, this football team finds a way to win. And how sweet it is to be 7-0.
Yeah, absolutely. Nevertheless, Iowa State, that's your top 10 Iowa State Cyclones. 38, UCF 35. I want to dive into Rocco Becht's performance. I think he was kind of the story of the offense. Only 20 of 46. He did have 274 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. One was not really his fault.
Yeah.
But the bigger story is 20 carries for 97 yards. I think the most he had in a game before was something like 10 carries. I think his career high for yards was somewhere around 31, I think. And then obviously had a pair of touchdowns. I thought that was kind of the first game. We've kind of said, man, Rocco's got a little purdy in him. That was kind of the first game where we got that backyard football, extend plays, get out of sacks, make a good throw on third down. What did you take away from Rocco's performance last night?
Well, several things, right? So we'll start with the bad and go to the good. The first thing I thought UCF had confused Iowa State's offense, in particular Rocco. The initial reads weren't there. There were times where he was just stuck on a guy, right? One of the pick sixes was him absolutely from before he even took the snap, he was looking over at Moore on the left side of the formation and, snaps it, keeps locked on him, throws it, and good play by that corner against a bigger guy, but the corner could close faster than Tyler Moore could close on it, and off to the races for an interception. The second pick, almost 6, was also not a good throw. It was behind Noel, and he was trying to adjust to it, got his hands on it, but it just popped up in the air and into UCF's hands. I thought that UCF did a great job with their man under game. They took routes away right off the bat. They got pressure with 4, and then they brought pressure with more regularly. And, we just didn't have there were times when the pocket was good and Rocco had happy feet because of the pressure he'd gotten at other times. And, we ask him to do a ton, right? So I'm not saying that that's an abnormal situation to be in. This is a difficult, we're asking him to run a huge amount of the offense through him, especially when we were struggling to run the ball after Hansen got hurt. But the thing that he did really well is he broke the defense down with his feet. And so when, that man coverage took away whatever initial look he had, he would start to scramble a little bit, look down the field. I think they did a nice job of covering down the field after, we were in scramble moments for the most part. Other than that play to Abu Sama, like when you need a miracle, count on Iowa State, right? How on earth is your running back? Like there's 3 guys in the same zone and he just lets it fly. And Sama was Johnny on the spot. But, Rocco in those moments, much of the game got first downs with his feet. And, those scramble plays and the mix of quarterback run game at times, Aiden, was really the difference in the game. And, think about that last drive. Couple of great plays throwing the ball. One got a completion, one got a pass interference call. But then, quarterback run game, unafraid, knowing that the clock actually at that point was your friend, as long as something really crazy didn't happen. I think Iowa State did a masterful job. You mentioned it in using the timeouts. We can talk more about that. But, thank goodness. I lament the Big 12 referees with some regularity. But we were way offsides on that quarterback sneak at the end of the game. I mean, way.
One of my old college roommates texted me. He goes, "The left guard was in the end zone by the time they snapped it."
100%. Yeah, and that left guard spot, Neal was in on that play, and I thought he had a nice game. He played well at that location along with Bohr, who had started the game. And Barrett must be injured enough that just not able to go. So, you got 3 good options at that spot, which is good. But I thought those 2 guys played good football for the most part. It was not going to be one of those days that you look back on as an Iowa State offensive lineman and say, man, that was our best work. But they were also playing against some super physical, super skilled, yoked up dudes. And, to know that you were going to run quarterback run game and then to know that you were going to sneak it immediately if you didn't get it on, I think it was 3rd down. It's like that is, and you still got another down to go, right? So, and we still had time. I thought all of that was executed to perfection, minus the false start. Thankfully, it wasn't called, and you're in the end zone. Because if it is called, it's a 10-second runoff.
Right, I didn't even think about that.
And the clock starts, right? So, you're moving back to like the 8-yard line, and you have less time, and now the clock's going. You replay the down, so Iowa State would have gotten 2 shots, but it for sure changes how you have to attack that moment if that penalty happens. But it didn't, and Iowa State in the end zone, and then really forcing UCF into the part of the game that they didn't want to do at all, which is throw it with 30 seconds left.
Yeah. I think you kind of touched on it, but what specifically did UCF do to give Iowa State so many problems on offense?
I think RJ Harvey is a stud. I mean, stud. And we knew UCF had skill. We knew they had players. The fact that they're 3-4 right now is really surprising to me after watching them play. I think they were they were what I was afraid of, right? Very athletic, highly skilled in the run game, physical up front on both sides of the football. And where they pressured Iowa State was, they're running that spread look, true spread, right? So you have to defend the entire field all the time. And you can't cheat safeties. And if you do, they have to choose outside leverage or off tackle leverage. Well, UCF did a great job of attacking both of those spots. And the minute Iowa State widened their defensive linemen out, which was a good adjustment in my mind, they went back to quarterback power. It's like, and they got a guy who can run it there. So, I think UCF blocked well across the front and good at the point of attack. But I think they really were trying to put pressure on the young linebacking core for Iowa State and force them into space and force them to have to make plays. And I think for the most part, Iowa State did make those plays, but they hit some home runs, and you put those with a couple pick sixes and 350 yards rushing, right? It's an improbable day that you give up 350 yards rushing.
Recipe for disaster. 9.1 yards per carry.
Yep.
Are you worried about Iowa State's run defense at all moving forward?
I don't know that I can answer that without thinking about guys getting healed up, right? So this off week comes, and it couldn't come at a better time. I think a couple of the linebackers, the starters, are going to be close to being back in the near future. Those guys haven't played for a long time. So, but they are also fresh. So, if you can get rehabbed and get back into this thing, that is a huge part of upside when you think about Iowa State playing in the postseason and what this postseason could mean. But, you got a couple challenging games ahead. I think Cincinnati is playing really good football right now. They're running it well. They're throwing it well. They've got a good defense. That is the Cincinnati that we thought we were getting in the Big 12, not the one that we've seen in the last couple of years. So I think there's a lot of work to do, but just to cap one more point around where we were talking about Rocco, that dude, for all the bad and the good, is a champion. And I just, we weren't at the game because my son was ill. There were people who have texted me that said that is the most iconic performance they've seen by an Iowa State football player.
And he was 20 for 46.
Both
can be true though.
And it was the adversity that was as much, a factor in all of that, right? It wasn't his best stuff, but yet he just kept fighting and he just kept believing, and Matt just kept believing in him. And, they had a conversation on the sideline about, okay, how do we stay in the moment? How do we, at least that's what I'm anticipating it was, right? It's just like, calm, collected, Matt just talking to him, right? Just talking to him as people, like, just whatever he needed in that moment, Matt was figuring out how to give it to him, right? And I think that's what good leaders do. Rocco is just, he's a lion, man. And the team needs him to be, because we put all that on him, right? That's how it works. I think for us to call quarterback run game late in the game like that, in critical situations like that, says we're not afraid to I think with Purdy at times, Iowa State's offensive philosophy was we can't get him hurt, so we can't run him. We ran him sparingly, and he ran at times just to make plays happen. I think Mauser is just like, you know what? We got to do what we got to do. He'll get it done, and it's going to be what it is because we can't win without it, and he can't be his best without it. So, you throw some quarterback run game in, and next thing you know, you're blowing a hole in the end zone for the go-ahead score.
Yeah, well said. Cyclone Sunday here from the Channel Seed Studios on Iowa Everett. Ben Bruns, Aiden, Wyatt. Iowa State 38-35 winners over UCF. Before we get to, I want to break down kind of the last couple minutes of the game, but first, let's talk about the weird pick six, non-pick six play. I think it was, I don't know how long the return was, but it was a long return.
It was like 60 yards.
Yeah, I think so, something like that. And the UCF defender drops the ball well before he gets to the end zone. I mean, on first replay, it was like, yeah, he didn't even come close. I want to get your perspective as an offensive lineman. I don't know if Sage ever threw any pick sixes in your days or anything like that. But
oh man,
when there's a play like that, I don't know that you can really blame anyone for not picking up the ball in the end zone. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, interceptions are chaos. They are absolute chaos. Everybody is spread all over across the field, right? And all of a sudden, the possession flips. And defensive players are just jonesing for an opportunity to hit offensive guys, live in space when, they have the angle and there's no set play to be done, right? So, they love those moments because they're like, I'm just going to go find somebody and decleat them. And offensive players rarely have to cover like that, right? So you're scrambling and, the guy that was closest to him was Jalen Travis, which, for a big guy like that to be recognize what was going on and get back and, try to have an angle. But he went to Princeton, and he didn't think, because in those moments, I mean, you're just running as hard as you can, as fast as you can, and they drop the ball, and it's hard to perceive even following him what's going on, right? So, the camera on the broadcast pans to people freaking out on the sideline, like coaches running down saying, grab it, grab it, grab it. There was another Iowa State player, wide receiver, trailing the play too. And it's just not something that you think about. And it's unfortunate because it would have been a touchback in that situation. Mm-hmm. It's unfortunate the ball just didn't roll out of the back of the side of the end zone. The ball, how often does the ball just stop like that, right? In play in the end zone, and very rarely. So, I think Jaden Travis, he's doing everything he can to try and make a play. That's not a play that everybody will learn from that, right? On the offensive side and the defensive side.
Yeah, I can guarantee that Iowa State's not going to let that happen again this year.
No.
Matt Campbell won't allow that. That's for sure.
Yeah, but, those plays happen once every, however, it just doesn't happen, right? It just doesn't happen in football. So the outcome ended up exactly like the outcome started, which was this is big trouble going the other way. And your momentum is killed again. And so I think for Iowa State to come back from these momentum killing moments when they were grinding and, they tied it up, and now we're going to get a chance to maybe go ahead, and oops. So, I just think it's a game that Iowa State and UCF both will wish they had done some things different, but the will to win and the never quit. The black shirts believed is or the black jerseys believed, right?
That's an all-time quote.
It's so good. It's so
all-timer.
Yeah.
Speaking of Matt Campbell, we were both pretty complimentary of how he handled the clock late in the game, which is nothing new. I mean, that's kind of been his calling card. I think at this point, with the 2-minute timeout now, I think it's around 3 minutes or so that you have, you can punt. I think, we saw it in the Texas game a couple of years ago. That was before the 2-minute timeout. Saw it in the Iowa game this year. I think, what were your thoughts on how Iowa State kind of handled that last 4 minutes or so of the game?
Yeah, I mean, to not start calling those timeouts after you get the minus yardage play on the first set of downs was good restraint on the first down play. Then then they get a first down and they go backward on a procedure penalty, and you don't start taking them there either. I'm like, whoa, okay, holding these things, and the way it played out, the fact that they ended up getting 2 first downs and Iowa State still got the ball back with plenty of time. The 2-minute timeout has been good to Iowa State twice this year, as you mentioned.
Yep.
I'm not sure we win those games without the 2-minute timeout. Maybe we do, but I just don't know how. And B, a great job of having your defense have discipline to force a punt. And it wasn't like things were poorly defended on those other 2 sets of downs when they got first downs. Iowa State was in good position. UCF made a couple plays, but Brown was very capable as a runner, not so much as a passer. And so, when you get that chance to get a longer yardage situation and he just misses a throw, right? If he hits that throw, that game's over, because they had it wide open. Maybe it's a touchdown even, right? But he misses it, and Iowa State knew that he, was Iowa State was focused on containing his run as opposed to field, with a throw on the run, and fortune favors those who prepare.
Well said. We've made it a point on this show a little bit to talk about each season for Iowa State. And we think that this is the end of season 2. And we think that season 3 is the bye week, Texas Tech, Kansas, and Cincinnati. What's your outlook for season 3?
Yeah, I mean, surprising game with Texas Tech and Baylor. It was close early, and then Baylor's dominance up front on both sides of the football really, was the difference in that game. So you got to like the matchup coming in a couple weeks. Kansas playing in Arrowhead will be it'll just be a different environment. It'll be but they've done it a bunch, right? There's not a novelty to it for them. And Cyclone Larry had a great tweet of how sparsely populated the stadium was, right? I mean, it looks like Kansas of old. And I'm not mad about that because, they've got problems like Florida State has problems. So, you go down there and play that game. And then I think the Cincinnati game is for all the chili, man. I think that one is a huge deal. Bigger maybe than anybody had imagined coming into, we've said all along, you win them all, it doesn't matter, right? Nothing else, nothing matters. The format says you're in. But if, you trip up along the way, have a loss or 2, there's just no sure bets. And, you want to be in that game to have a chance, regardless of, anything else that happens. Because, Aiden, we all know, and College Game Day and ESPN and all the talking heads, Danny Cannell and everybody, they're all trying to set the narrative up that Iowa State doesn't deserve to be here in the event that we're not the champion. And, who's surprised, right? The issue is that the minute you lose, especially this year, teams have dropped substantially. And, we've seen it in the past where if you have a late season loss, you drop way more than maybe somebody who had an early loss and worked their way back up in, right? So it all matters. It's all important. And all three of these games that are coming up in season 3 are the kind that can shift the balance of power in the Big 12, which is squarely tipped right now in Iowa State and BYU's favor. And they've earned it.
Yeah, absolutely. Iowa State heads into a bye week. Last thing here. Talk about a well-timed bye. Everyone just kind of take a breather here. Yeah. And I'm not talking just the players, the fans. Take a breather.
Deep cleansing breath.
Yes.
Yeah. I heard the vibes were just off the charts to start the game.
Can I just say one thing quick?
Do.
So there was the debate, is it a blackout? Is it not a blackout? I thought it was the perfect amount of some people thought it was a blackout, but most people didn't.
Okay.
So it was like a perfect mix of cardinal and gold, and I think the whole student section was black. It was It was a cool environment. Not as cool as the whiteout, but it was aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I when you got good vibes and high expectations, and then you just keep putting yourself up against it, right? That's a challenge. But Iowa State weathered the storm. I hope everybody got home safe, and you just live to play another day, right? It's an improbable season, and there's more out there, right? A lot more out there. So
team of destiny vibes.
Yep, for sure. And guys need to heal up when you have this. I mean, I think everybody's banged up. Rocco has to feel like he was in a prize fight. Chris Hassel had a tweet, the pick 6 that Rocco threw where it was locked on Moore. He had been, he'd had a long run on the prior play, had 2 guys land on him at full speed. And, it's possible to not be all collected when you get back to the line of scrimmage. Right. And, I remember thinking to myself, wow, he's in fantastic shape to run that play and then just get back and, and then whoops, but it's just, there's so many things that we ask him to do in terms of reading coverage, executing throws, moving around, reading defensive line play and linebackers in the run game. And he's handled it just magnificently throughout his career. He's only a sophomore. And, Iowa State just continues to find a way. And they all need to spend the next couple of days rehabbing, decompressing a little bit, right? I think Matt breaking this thing up into bite-sized chunks for them. They were going to be okay coming out of this bye week, if we won or lost that game. They were. It was going to be okay. Now you can be okay knowing that you still hold all the cards. And instead of being okay, like, oh, our backs are against the wall, we've got to, do X, Y, and Z. You still have to do all that, right? Like, the only way you get everything you want is for you to execute in this next season. However, you get the chance to recover and feel good while you do, and then focus on your next opponent. And Iowa State's going to be scouting hard KU and Cincinnati through this period of time. And, that stretch at the end with Utah not playing as well as we thought they would probably feels different than it once did. And if we do everything right, we're going to end up playing the Thunder Kitties for a whole bunch of marbles. So here we go.
Yep. Good stuff, Ben. That's about all I got for you, my man.
All right, brother.
This has been Cyclone Sunday. Ben Bruns, Aiden Wyatt here in the Channel Seed Studios. We will see you in 2 weeks here on the Iowa Everywhere Network.